Why is it always so hard to pick what to play next? Too soon for this. No, definitely not that. Maybe next year. God, no. There's just too many to choose from.
Hey, Mommy, why don't you pick this game? I'm not sure what it's about, but the main character is soft and fuzzy. I love soft and fuzzy.
Ooh, Ratchet and Clank. I love this franchise to pieces. That's a perfect choice, Kana. Good job.
Yay! So when do I get snacks?
Kana, you just ate 5 minutes ago, you little chunk.
Snacks!
But
Snacks!
fine, you've earned them, I suppose. You're a fuzzy little thug, I hope you know that. But I gotta admit, you picked a winner this time. Hello everyone, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns, and welcome to Should You Complete This, a show where I take a look at a game I've completed in the past and ask the ever-important question, is this game worth completing? Today, thanks to Kana's impeccable judgment, we are discussing Ratchet and Clank Future, Tools of Destruction, along with its digital-only sequel, Quest for Booty. Let's take a closer look and see if these games are worth your time. When it comes to Ratchet and Clank, the franchise has always held a special place in my heart, even more than the infamous series. Developed by Insomniac Games, the same studio that made Spyro the Dragon and Spider-Man 2018, which was a fantastic game by the way, Ratchet is just another success story for the studio. You see, back in the early days of Sony, Insomniac was one of 3 major developers that created mascot platformers for their system. Naughty Dog, creators of Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, and Uncharted, Sucker Punch, creators of Sly Cooper and Infamous, and Insomniac were considered by my group of friends to be the big 3 when it comes to platformers. Each studio consistently turned out quality products, and we all loved them. What's even better is that these developers were friendly with each other and loved to drop Easter eggs from both studios in their games. Hell, Naughty Dog was 1 cubicle away from Insomniac, and you can easily see the influence each studio had on the others. It was just so wonderful seeing them work together, especially since we don't see a lot of that camaraderie these days. My friends and I loved these franchises growing up, and we each picked out our favorite franchise to follow. For the longest time, my favorite series was Jak and Daxter, with Jak 2 being my overall favorite game in the series, but something strange happened when the PS3 came out. Mascot platformers began to fizzle out. Naughty Dog changed focus over to Uncharted, a third-person action game, while Sucker Punch began their infamous series. The dawn of the PlayStation 3 brought shooters and sandbox games into the limelight, and there was a shortage of platformers for a good long while. However, while Insomniac created their own third-person shooter with Resistance Fall of Man in 2006, they also created a soft reboot for Ratchet and Clank in 2007. Releasing only 2 years after Deadlocked, the last Ratchet game on PS2, Ratchet and Clank Future Tools of Destruction was created from the ground up as a platformer, but also serves as a jumping-on point for the series. And this is where I came in. While I had knowledge of the previous games in the series and had played a little bit of each of them, this is where I personally jumped on board and became a fan. While longtime fans will understand references to past games in the series, you really don't need to know anything to start playing when it comes to the Future quadrilogy. It was my love for this quadrilogy that eventually led me to go back and play the original Ratchet games when they were remastered on PS3, as well as Deadlocked, which was surprisingly also remastered. I was kind of shocked when it came out because not many people seem to like it, but there it is, and we'll talk about it in the future. With that in mind, today we are diving into Ratchet and Clank Future, Tools of Destruction, to see where my love for this series really began. Tools of Destruction appears to be set in the year 5359, 2 years since the end of Deadlocked. However, I'm not entirely sure if that's accurate. According to my research, and this was very extensive research on my part, Deadlocked took place in 5357, but the Future series doesn't provide any concrete dates, and the calendar in the Ratchet universe apparently contains more than 12 months, with some months combining names like Octogust and Marchember. While I've done my best to find out how long a calendar year is in this universe, my Google Foo has failed me this time. I can't find any concrete information, which upsets me a bit, and when I put out the call to my followers, they couldn't find any information as well. The most information I found was a speculation video on YouTube, which is still not concrete and a little bit upsetting. For now, I'm just going to say that Tools of Destruction takes place in 5359 and leave it at that. The player takes control of the titular Ratchet, one of the last known Lombaxes in the universe, and his best friend Clank. The Lombaxes were a race of cat-like aliens renowned for their advanced technology, including Ratchet's Omni Wrench, which can be used as a melee weapon, in addition to a wrench. Pretty handy, these Lombaxes. The Lombaxes have seemingly vanished from the universe, although we have seen traces of their lost technology throughout the series. Clank, on the other hand, is a robot that was produced in a villainous factory, but emerged defective, possessing free will, but a body that was far smaller than the rest of the production line. After escaping from the factory, Clank crash-landed on Ratchet's planet, Ratchet fixed him up, named him, and the two became fast friends. Now, these events took place during the first game in the series, but as I said before, you really don't need any knowledge of the previous games to enjoy Tools of Destruction. The opening cutscene does a fantastic job of getting new players up to speed. Ratchet is a hero who has saved the galaxy numerous different times, Clank is his partner and best friend, and they are currently taking a break from heroics on planet Kerwan in the Solana Galaxy as they work on completing Ratchet's nuclear-powered rocket sled. This game is awesome, I love it. As they prepare for their test flight, Clank receives a distress call from Captain Quark, the previous hero of the Solana Galaxy, who's stationed at the Planetary Defense Center. Captain Quark has a long and complex history throughout the series, but for now, all we really need to know is that he is a self-proclaimed hero who is completely full of himself, but is cowardly most of the time. Come to think of it, I wonder if his character is a reference to Captain Kirk from Star Trek. I mean, his full name is Copernicus Leslie Quark, which is somewhat similar to James Tiberius Kirk. Anyway, Quark quickly asks Ratchet for help as Kerwan is being invaded by an alien force. Ratchet springs into action and works his way over to the Planetary Defense Center, destroying the aliens as he goes, which appear to be fish in suits of robotic armor. You see, this is why you don't piss off Freddy Fish, because he'll come back packing heat. Points to whoever understood that reference. Good job, guys. Upon reaching the defense center, Ratchet discovers the invading force is being led by Emperor Percival Tachyon, a being known as a Kragmite who claims to be Emperor of the Polaris Galaxy. Having heard about Ratchet from his previous adventure in Deadlocked, where Ratchet was forced to compete on the intergalactic TV show Dread Zone, Tachyon traveled to Kerwan in order to destroy the last Lombax in the universe. Well, I assume so, because the game never really tells us how he heard about Ratchet in the first place, but I think that's a safe assumption. Longtime fans of the series will also know that Ratchet is technically not the only Lombax in the universe, since Angela Cross from Going Commando is also a Lombax, but much like Deadlocked, she isn't mentioned in this game. This is most likely to help new players use this game as a jumping on point, and it honestly works. While references to past games are appreciated, they aren't exactly needed in this case. All we really need to know is that Tachyon is evil and wants to kill Ratchet so that he won't be a threat to his evil plans. For new players, this is enough, especially because we aren't told what these plans are right away. After escaping from Tachyon and his forces, Ratchet travels to the Polaris Galaxy to learn what Tachyon is planning, rescue Captain Quark, save the universe, and learn what happened to the rest of the Lombaxes, all before dinner time. From this point onwards, Tools of Destruction becomes a bit like Infamous in the fact that the plot is drip-fed to us after each mission. You travel from planet to planet, finding new upgrades for your arsenal, new gadgets to use, and clues to what the fabled Lombax secret is. The difference between Tools and Infamous, however, is the open-ended nature of this game. When you arrive on a new planet, you're free to explore as much as you please and complete each mission objective on the planet in any order. While there are some mission objectives that require certain tools to complete, much like in Metroid Prime, you're still free to explore the planet up to that point, and the game doesn't tell you about the gadget, so the sense of exploration and immersion is left intact. There are usually multiple different objectives on each planet, in addition to hidden collectibles such as gold bolts, which are used to unlock new skins for your character, skill points, which are used to unlock behind-the-scenes footage and other cool stuff, and holo plans for the Rhino 4, the most powerful weapon in the game. I mean, the title literally stands for Rip You a New One. That is just plain awesome. There is so much to find and do in the game that it never feels linear or stale, and you can revisit planets at any time to look for anything you may have missed. This sense of freedom is what I love the most about the way the story is handled. Yes, the story is linear, but it never feels linear because you choose where to go and what to do, with each planet serving to flesh out the world of the game and give us more and more hints about Tachyon's plan. The Polaris Galaxy is huge, and I find it a joy to explore. At the same time, there are parts of the story that feel a bit disjointed. In addition to Tachyon, you are also attacked by Captain Slag, a robotic space pirate who steals treasure and grog from ships all across the galaxy. While I personally love Captain Slag as a villain, he just kind of appears out of nowhere with no build-up, and his feud with Ratchet feels lackluster as a result. He appears as a recurring presence throughout the game, since he's also seeking the Lombax secret, but I feel he could have used a lot more build-up, and he feels a bit disjointed from Tachyon. These villains are completely at odds with each other, since one's a dictator and one's a pirate. They just don't seem to fit in the story together, since they are at such odds. Perhaps that was the point though, since they represent different sides of the villain perspective, but I wish the game would have stuck with Slag and just built him up more, because I have issues with Tachyon as a villain, which I'll get to in a bit. In any event, I felt like Slag worked as a standalone villain, while Tachyon was incorporated into the plot much better. Alright, it's time to discuss spoilers for the story. Jump to this timecode if you wish to avoid spoilers for the plot. You have been warned. As you progress through the game, you eventually learn that the Lombaxes were at war with the Kragmites, a race of tyrannical aliens who went from planet to planet committing genocide on a galactic scale. The Kragmites posed a threat to the known universe as a whole, so the Lombaxes created the Lombax Secret, a device known as the Dimensionator, which had the power to send the Kragmites to another dimension entirely and get rid of them once and for all. However, one Kragmite was later found by Lombax miners on Creeley Comet. This was Percival Tachyon. He was raised by the Lombaxes, who believed their parentage could curb the destructive tendencies of the Kragmites. However, once he learned what the Lombaxes had done, he began to build his empire and hunted down the Lombaxes. In the end, the Lombaxes used the Dimensionator to travel to another universe to escape from Tachyon's rule. At the end of the game, Tachyon manages to find the Dimensionator and brings back the Kragmites to aid in his conquest. Ratchet is forced to single-handedly kill all the Kragmites and take down Tachyon once and for all, before he and the Kragmites take over the entire universe. Overall, I think this story works well. The personal connection that Tachyon has to Ratchet works incredibly well. When I learned that he was the reason that Ratchet's parents and his entire race were sent into hiding, I was ready to punch him in his smug little face. It reminds me a lot of Frieza in Dragon Ball Z when he reveals that he destroyed planet Vegeta and killed Goku's father. That kind of personal touch really adds to the hatred of a villain, and I love it. The other thing that works are the stakes. Percival is a threat to the entire universe, not just the Polaris Galaxy, but also the other known galaxies as well. Everything from the previous games. The Kragmites won't just stop at one planet. They will take over everything and kill anyone who dares to oppose them. Again, much like Frieza, Tachyon and his Kragmites need to be stopped, and the stakes are all there. The problem that I have is with Percival himself. I don't think he's a threatening villain at all, and I just generally dislike him. There's just something about him that makes me want to laugh rather than cower in fear. Part of it is his diminutive size, making me think he has a Napoleon complex. Part of it is his voice, which is high-pitched and squeaky, And part of it is the fact that he never once appears competent as a villain. None of his plans succeed, and he is just a dumb character overall. This is what is frustrating to me because I love the connection he has, but I don't think he works at all. There is a much better character here that could have been utilized, especially because there is a gray area to his backstory. He believes that the Lombaxes are in the wrong because they got rid of his entire race, much like the Kragamites. In a certain sense, while his reasoning isn't particularly solid, I can see why he hates the Lombaxes and tries to get revenge, but his character is just so annoying it hurts the whole thing. That also brings me back to Captain Slag and his pirates. Slag could have been the comic relief villain, but he ends up being far more intimidating and an overall better boss. Slag is intimidating with his monstrous build, is relentless with his assaults, and has victories over Ratchet. He manages to steal the Dimensionator, and overall feels like a bigger threat, which is a problem because he has no reason to want the Dimensionator, and has no connection to Ratchet at all. Their roles should have been reversed, or one of the villains should have been cut, in order to put better focus on the other. It's a shame because, while I love Slag, I kinda want him to be cut, because he's just kinda there, and I also want Percival to be cut because I just don't like him as a character. Even still, this story is wonderfully executed most of the time, and I never found myself bored by it. The way the story unfolds through player choice and exploration helps to alleviate some of the frustration, and it's still a rather enjoyable story, all things considered, questioning the morality of the Lombax's decision. In terms of characters, Tools of Destruction is a bit of a mixed bag. I already discussed the problems with the villains, but the heroes are somewhat mixed as well. Captain Quark feels like an afterthought in this game because he only appears a couple times during the story on planet Mukau. Quark is usually an important character, but here he's reduced to comic relief, gathering intel on Tachyon by working for him with endorsement deals. To be honest, I have some issues with this. Yes, Quark has always been comic relief, but he's still supposed to be a superhero at the end of the day. He's saved the galaxy numerous times before, taken down Dr. Nefarious, and aided Ratchet on the front lines of battle, but here he's just a coward. It's almost like they only took one part of his character and just focused on that. This will improve in later games, but I honestly feel like this is one of his weakest appearances in the series. Also, the fact that Tachyon couldn't see Quark's betrayal coming from a mile away just further shows how dumb this guy is as a villain. Yes, it is funny, and the comic relief is wonderful, but it comes at the expense of Quark's character development, which is non-existent in this game. At the same time, Ratchet and Clank are just as wonderful as ever. Ratchet has matured a lot from earlier games, but he still has arguments here and there with Clank and has to grow as a character. The biggest thing that works about his development in this game is his wish to learn about the Lombaxes and take down Tachyon. This is the first game to tell us what happened to his race and makes the adventure much more intimate. You really feel for Ratchet as he yearns for any hint of the Lombaxes, and in turn, any idea what happened to his parents. It makes the journey far more emotional, and this will only build in future games. He's tempted to use the Dimensionator himself to find his parents and the rest of his race, but makes the right choice to take down Tachyon. And when Tachyon says that he's the only one who knows Ratchet's true purpose and how to bring back the Lombaxes, I actually started to cry, because you know Ratchet has to make the right choice in the end, but you can see it tear him apart inside. It's a very emotional ending, and the character growth for Ratchet in this game is top-notch. As for Clank, he doesn't get too much, but his development is mostly set up for the third game in the series, Ratchet and Clank Future: A Crack in Time. During Tools of Destruction, creatures known as the Zoni appear to Clank and help him on his journey. They show Clank where he needs to go, help him solve environmental puzzles, give him cool new abilities, and also let him know when an ally of theirs is kidnapped. The Zoni also claim to be a key to his past, and Clank tries to tell Ratchet about them. However, the Zoni are invisible to everyone else, and Ratchet initially doesn't believe they exist. By the end of the game, Ratchet trusts Clank a lot more, as he sees that the Zoni are real, which also adds to Ratchet's character, but the real game changer is the cliffhanger ending, where the Zoni appears to everyone, mind melds with Clank, and Clank willingly goes with them to parts unknown. The mystery of the Zoni is an interesting plot point, and that cliffhanger alone had me itching for more. I just had to know who the Zoni were, what Clank's past was, and if he would ever reunite with Ratchet. This is character development that is different for the series, as not much is told, but it is super enticing and made Clank far more interesting than past games where he had a good character, but we didn't really know much about him. The rest of the characters aren't really worth much notice. We meet two warbots named Kronk and Zephyr, who are funny but don't do much in the game, aside from help in combat, and we also meet a girl named Talwyn, who gives us exposition about the Lombaxes and not much else. She will have a larger role to play in future games. Still, while some of the characters are a bit frustrating with their development, the rest of the cast gets some amazing things to do and made me want to keep playing, so I can't complain all that much. In terms of gameplay, Ratchet and Clank has 3 distinct selling points: exploration, gunplay, and a unique leveling mechanic. When it comes to exploration, Tools of Destruction excels for the most part. You travel across each unique planet, looking for new weapons and gadgets to aid in your quest, platforming across terrain as you do so. Because planets are so vastly different from one another, this lends unique platforming challenges for each one, and helps to keep the platforming fresh. Sometimes you are traveling through lush jungles, other times you are riding a gyrocycle through lava refineries. The sheer variety of the landscapes ensures that it never becomes boring, although I did find some planets annoying. The pitfalls in Ardolis were a pain in the neck because the sheer amount of pirates gets in the way of platforming, and Kortog can be annoying because some of the skill points are very finicky, and the robo-wings are rather difficult to control in the crowded environment. Still, most of the time it is fun to explore these planets, especially because the controls are buttery smooth. Ratchet has an amazing amount of mobility for a creature his size. His double jump allows you to clear gaps with relative ease, and with the help of Clank, he can glide to ledges in the distance. Clank also gives you a high jump to reach high ledges, while on the ground Ratchet can easily strafe around enemies and do backflips and side flips to avoid enemy fire. The key point of Ratchet is his mobility and speed, since he can easily run circles around enemies. Ratchet has excellent melee capabilities with his Omni Wrench, but he can also throw his wrench for long-range attacks, allowing him to pick off enemies from a distance even when he runs out of ammo. Ratchet is a versatile character, and he's just fun to control when exploring new planets. However, the draw for most players will most likely be the gunplay. One of the signature tenets of Ratchet and Clank are the crazy amount of different guns and gadgets you can find throughout the game. Hell, this is what the trailers for each game focused on, and I can't blame them because these guns are numerous but also ridiculous as all hell. Each weapon has its own unique balance that adds something new to the table, but also makes the weapon just fun to use. For example, the Shock Ravager is an electric whip that shocks enemies. It is useful against the smaller enemies in the game, but it can also be used to take down enemies with shields. It has multiple uses, but it's a short range, so it's not useful in every situation. There's also the Negotiator, a gun that shoots rockets with immense firepower that can take down bosses quickly, but also has a low ammo count to balance it out. The way everything is balanced encourages you to test out each and every weapon in the game to find your personal favorite. I personally loved the Alpha Disruptor, a sniper that deals massive damage but has low ammo counts, the Buzzblades, a weapon that deals less damage but has massive ammo to pick away at enemy health, the Rhino 4 because it decimates everything in your path, and the Shard Reaper, a long-range shotgun that takes down fleshy enemies in just a few hits. At the same time, I found the Plasma Beasts to be somewhat lackluster, since while they do have a high damage output, the ammo count is simply laughable, and they leave you vulnerable to attack. And while the Tornado Launcher sounds cool at first, it not only leaves you vulnerable to attack, but you have to use the 6-axis controls to move the tornado around. Yeah, that's just not fun. Still, overall, I found the weapons to be fun to use, and with a weapon count this large, there's bound to be something I didn't like. It happens in every Ratchet game. There's just one or two weapons that I personally do not like. With that being said, can we talk about the 6-axis controls for a hot second? Because, hot damn, these are annoying. At various different points throughout the game, you are required to use the 6-axis controls to navigate a specific challenge, and my disdain just built and built and built until I couldn't take it any longer. At first, I thought they were harmless, but you use them for so much in the game that they become unbearable. You use 6-axis to move Ratchet around during halo jumps, you use them to control the Geo Laser, you use them to navigate with the Robo Wings, you use them to control the Tornado Launcher, you use them to hack doors with the Infiltrator, with this ball-rolling minigame which can seriously fuck right off with how much it's used. It is way too much. They even give you the option at one point to use the left stick instead of the 6-axis controls, but no matter how many times we pressed the X button, the controls would not switch, so we had to use the 6-axis controls in this situation. And yes, I know there was a commenter on Likar's stream that mentioned to me that, there was a possibility that either in a prompt near the beginning of the game or hidden in the options menu, you can switch the controls from 6-axis to normal, but as far as I know, after playing the game 3 specific times, I did not see this, and so I was forced to play the game with 6-axis controls, so yes, I'm a little bitter. You even have to use 6-axis controls in a dance minigame on planet Ardolis, where shaking the controller causes you to shake your booty.
Shake your booty!
Yeah, there's a mini game where you dress up as a pirate and dance a jig to prove your pirate material and get past a door, and shaking your booty requires you to use 6-axis controls. What the hell?
Shake your booty!
Also, shaking your booty causes the pirates to explode. I repeat, shaking your booty causes the pirates to explode.
So, like, my thighs are dummy thick and the clap of my ass cheeks causes pirates to explode? Do you want some of this or what?
I got nothing, guys. I got nothing. Nothing for this. What? Anyway, my point is that these motion controls are everywhere in the game, and while they seemed harmless at first, they just become a chore. I dreaded each 6-axis sequence simply because I didn't want to have to deal with them, especially during challenge mode, where the sequences get even harder and more frustrating. Motion controls were the gimmick at the time, and they just drag the game in a lot of places. To be perfectly honest, the motion control portions hurt the game a ton and make the gameplay one of the weaker entries in the franchise because of it. And again, I know there's supposedly a way to turn them off, but in my experience, I never did. At the same time, this game is a joy to play. The platforming is a delight, the weapons are pure fun to use, and you're compelled to keep playing because everything can be upgraded. As you kill enemies, Ratchet receives nanotech upgrades, giving him a larger pool of health to use, and killing enemies with a specific weapon allows that particular weapon to upgrade. You start with V1 and can upgrade to V5 in your first playthrough, where the name of each weapon changes and they get a special feature. For example, the Combustor becomes the Magma Combustor at V5 and starts shooting balls of liquid magma that leave trails that hurt enemies. However, once you beat the game once, you can play it again in challenge mode, where enemies hit harder, you can upgrade your health even further, and weapons level to V10 with the moniker of Omega, which makes them even more awesome. You can also purchase better armor and gadgets as you play through the game to add to the amount of upgrades. There's so much to do and upgrade in this game that you just want to keep playing and become the Cyberman you know yourself to be. In the end, while there are some major gameplay issues with the 6-axis, Tools of Destruction is just damn fun to play, and I find myself revisiting it from time to time just because I love the Ratchet series so much. As for bugs and glitches, I didn't encounter as many with this game. There were 2 times that Ratchet fell to his death because he got locked in a cutscene on a moving pirate ship on Ardolis, and when the scene ended there was no platform to stand on because the ship moved away, but that was just a minor inconvenience. The game also crashed on me once after I got a skill point, meaning I had to get it twice, but that's about it. It's a very solid game overall, and I had far less trouble than with Infamous. And I think the crash might have just been my system overheating. It is rather old at this point, and the PlayStation 3 wasn't the best built system, to be perfectly honest. In terms of presentation, Tools of Destruction is top-notch. In stark contrast to Infamous, this game is a visual marvel and stood out like crazy in the launch years of the PlayStation 3. A large part of this is the color and visual design. This feels like a space epic, and while most launch games of the PS3 were dull, brown, and lifeless, Tools was breathtakingly beautiful. Even now, I'm amazed by these visuals. They hold up incredibly well and just add to my love for the game. As for the music, it's pretty good, but not a lot of it is memorable. This is because they focused on making the soundtrack feel like a space opera, and while it is grand in scope, none of it is supposed to stand out. It all works together to add to the atmosphere of the game, and it does a great job of making each scene feel space-tastic, which is a word that I just made up, but it fits. As a game, I consider Ratchet and Clank Tools of Destruction to be highly worth your time. While there are a few issues that hold it back, I still give the game itself my full stamp of approval. The Ratchet series as a whole is something you should check out, and I'd say this is an excellent jumping on point. You don't need to know any story or character details to enjoy it, and while it has some weaker gameplay elements, that means future games only get better from here. Now, before we get to the question of should you complete this, we have one other game to discuss: Ratchet and Clank Future: Quest for Booty.
Shake your booty!
Quest for Booty is the second game in the Future series, released for the PlayStation 3 in 2008. Despite this, it mainly served as a holdover for fans until the third game in the lineup, A Crack in Time, was completed. By the way, you may have picked up on this by now, but every Ratchet game aside from the first has a subtitle complete with innuendos built right in. Quest for Booty and Crack in Time are booty puns, and Tools of Destruction is a reference to another male member. I'm not entirely sure why this is a thing, but I get a laugh from it nonetheless because I am 5 and I love this type of humor. Fun fact, A Crack in Time was originally going to be called Clock Blockers, and that makes me giggle like a 5-year-old just thinking about it. Clock Blockers, that should have been the title. That's brilliant. Due to the game's length and size, Quest for Booty was a digital-only release for most countries, essentially serving as DLC. However, Europe and Australia did in fact receive physical releases of the game. While it is incredibly short, clocking in at around 2.5 hours in length, releasing it in stores did at least allow those in Europe and Australia the chance to have all 4 games in the Future series on their shelf. That does make me incredibly jealous, not gonna lie. Although, I have to question the price point of the game. Quest for Booty is still available on the PSN store for its original price of $15, and that's way too much for the length of the game. It honestly should only have been $5 at most, considering I've played games with far more content for half the price of Booty. Yeah, it's technically a sequel to Tools of Destruction, but there's not enough content to quantify it as a sequel to this game. With that being said, let's dive into this Booty. To be perfectly honest, I find Quest for Booty to be a completely unnecessary game. It focuses on Ratchet as he searches for the whereabouts of Clank after Tools of Destruction, but for the most part, there's just no substance to this game. There are very few locations to explore, and you end up revisiting 2 of them, so it starts to get repetitive very fast. I managed to beat the game in 2.5 hours, and half of those were just in one area of a planet. Also, since you don't have Clank in your party, you lose the ability to glide and high jump, so basic travel is much harder than before. All of the exploration is neutered in this game, but so is the gunplay. After the first level of the game, your guns are taken away from you for half of the experience, completely removing one of the major tenets of this series. When you finally get your guns back, you can't purchase ammo for them, and have to rely on ammo crates, which are in very short supply in this game. Weapon and nanotech upgrades have also been significantly reduced. you can only upgrade to 20 nanotech and V5 of each weapon, which is far too easy to do. In comparison, the main game for Tools of Destruction allows you to upgrade to 999 nanotech and V10 for each weapon. While the 6-axis minigames have thankfully been removed, they've been replaced with sequences where you have to use glowworms to navigate the terrain in the dark and prevent enemies from attacking you since you have no guns. There's even 2 points where you have to walk across extremely thin platforms in the dark, using glowworms to light your way, all while keeping enemies at bay. This does not feel like Ratchet and Clank 80% of the time, and I hate it. This is just not the game I signed up for. There's no skill points to acquire, no weapons to buy, no holo plans to find. There's just barely anything to link this to the rest of the franchise. There are 5 weapon upgrades you can find, scattered throughout the planet, but that's it, and even then they don't do much for damage output. You won't even notice the difference after you acquire the upgrade. I would say this game is completely skippable, but there are a few parts that are significant to the story. As Ratchet looks for Clank, he stumbles upon Captain Darkwater, another robot pirate who is friends with the Zoni. Captain Slag was Darkwater's first mate until he killed Darkwater and took over as the new captain with Rusty Pete at his side. It turns out that Darkwater had cursed his body, allowing his crew to come back to life if anyone disturbed it. Pete leads Ratchet to Darkwater and uses the curse to revive the head of Captain Slag that he places on Darkwater's body. The rest of the game is a mad dash to stop the resurrected Slag and steal back the Fulcrum Star, which will lead Ratchet to where the Zoni took Clank. After taking Slag down once again, we're treated to another cliffhanger where Dr. Nefarious is shown commanding the Zoni. Now, if you've only played Tools of Destruction, you won't know who this is, but longtime fans rejoiced at this reveal since he's a fan-favorite character and one of the best villains in the series. To be perfectly honest though, this cliffhanger is probably the entire reason they made the game. The stuff with Slag is fun, but it is far too short to have any real significance. The whole point was to build up to the reveal of Nefarious as the villain, which I feel could have been done in a trailer or at the end of Tools. The story isn't bad, but it doesn't warrant a full game, and this certainly is not worth $15. As it stands, the game gets a stamp of okay at best, and annoying at worst. This is a one and done game, and I would honestly suggest borrowing it from a friend or watching a Let's Play because it is not worth the price tag. And I am so glad I did not have to buy it again for this review because I would be even angrier than I am. It's just not worth $15. The question still remains though. Should you complete this? Well, in terms of Quest for Booty, the answer is a big fat
Nope.
There is nothing to complete here. Aside from the story, there's just the weapon upgrades, and it's just not enough. Finding all the upgrades only adds about a half hour to the game, and even then, it's not worth it. Upgrading weapons happens as you complete the story. Altogether, if you have to buy this game, just play it for the story. Don't waste your time. However, when it comes to Tools of Destruction, that's a different story. Unlike Infamous, Tools doesn't have any trophies or completion percentage calculators, but it does have skill points, which does work as in-game trophies. In order to acquire all skill points, you have to do everything in the game. Find all gold bolts, gadgets, weapons, armor, buy the Rhino 4, upgrade all weapons and do a bunch of individual tasks on each planet. These skill points track your progress as you go, and it's very easy to pull up skill points in your menu and see what you've completed thus far. Granted, they don't tell you what you need to do to get skill points you haven't acquired yet, but I stumbled upon most of them, and I used a guide for the rest. For the most part, skill points are fairly easy to get on each planet, aside from two specific ones. Wrench Ninja 3 requires you to navigate through planet Kortog from the beginning to the robot wing section, only using the wrench to damage enemies. I honestly think this skill point is glitched, because I spent a half hour trying to get this point when I first visited the planet, but I didn't get it. I spent another half hour in a second attempt, and still got nothing. However, when I returned near the end of the game, I managed to get the point with little to no effort. I've heard mixed reports about what causes the glitch, but nothing very concrete. The other skill point that will cause you trouble is Everybody Dance Now, which requires you to get every enemy in the game to dance at least once. Problem is, the Groovatron only has 3 ammo to use, and it resets with each playthrough. You have to gather enough Raritanium in the game to buy the Golden Groovatron, which has unlimited ammo, but also you'll probably need to play through challenge mode once before you have enough Raritanium for this device, meaning the length of the game increases drastically just for this skill point. During my first playthrough of the game, I managed to get every planet-specific skill point, every gold bolt, every weapon, and most of the miscellaneous skill points in 17.5 hours. But the game length is extended when it comes to upgrading all weapons, completing challenge mode once, and making every enemy in the game dance. Each additional playthrough adds about 10 hours of gameplay, meaning you will earn the final skill point, hardest of the core, after around 37 to 40 hours of in-game time. Also, the skill point guide that I used to help me get everything in the game lied to me and told me that I needed to make every creature in the game dance, which was not only wrong, but added an extra hour to my footage because I spent my time making the smuggler and other NPCs dance. Granted, it was fun, but it still added a lot more time to completion when it wasn't really needed. It's weird though. While this game took around the same time to complete as Infamous, it ended up feeling a lot longer because of everything you have to do to reach 100% completion. This was my first time completing the game, and it just felt longer than I expected it would. To be perfectly honest, while I do find the game more enjoyable than Infamous, Tools of Destruction is a bit more involved when it comes to completion criteria. The minimum number of playthroughs to complete the game is 3, and that may be a lot for the average gamer, but I still think this is a game worth completing for one major reason. The completion rewards are all good. First of all, every time you get a certain number of gold bolts, you get new skins to use in-game. I spent a large portion of the game as a snowman, a large portion as a Cragmite, and a large portion as Dan Johnson, a former employee of the studio who passed away in 2006. Using these skins makes cutscenes and gameplay look simply hilarious, and is totally worth the effort of collecting them. Then there are the skill point rewards. Earning a skill point in the game gives you credits to purchase unlockables, including trailers for the games, concept art, behind-the-scenes footage, how to draw Ratchet, and skins for the Omni Wrench, among other things. In my book, these completion rewards are entirely worth the time it takes to complete the game 100%. They give you so much more than other games, and the feeling you get when you get that final skill point and earn your final unlockable is highly worth it. So yeah, overall, I do feel that you should take the time to complete this game, and I give this a Kana stamp of approval. Just be prepared for a bit more of a challenge than Infamous was. With that being said, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns, and thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so that you too can join the Bun Squad, my legion of cute fluffy bunnies who interact with my videos, and don't forget to hit the bell so that you get every single notification. Next time on the show, we're taking a look at the LEGO Movie video game in a new segment I like to call Licensed Media Limbo. But first, let's take a look at the film over in Zen Movies. Have a good one, everybody, and I hope to see you next time.
Well, this was perfect timing, wasn't it, Zen?
What do you mean, Philip?
Oh, didn't you know? A new Ratchet and Clank game just got announced for PS5.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, take a look.
Ratchet, we are too late. Ratchet?
Who?